Bangung. Ya, jadi ini salah satu kegiatan internasionalisasi program studi teknologi pendidikan. Alhamdulillah mendatangkan dari Dr. Sean dari Amerika, dibantu Bu Fia juga. Terima kasih Bu Fia dikomunikasikan Sean beserta istri ya. Ya, beserta istri siapa namanya? Jill. Ya, welcome back Jill. Ya. Ya. Ya, terima kasih Bu Irena juga telah menjadi moderator di acara ini. Tentunya ini acara internasional dari program studi pendidikan karena Edunet Teknologi terakreditasi FIBA, accreditation ya, FIBA. Ya, maybe the future you can research collaboration with us, with the study program Edunet Teknologi, maybe with PLB ya, special education. I hope, halo, I hope this kerjasama ini bisa berlanjut begitu, and the future melalui kegiatan-kegiatan riset kolaborasi, collaboration riset. Ya, terima kasih sekali lagi. Semoga ilmu yang diberikan bermanfaat. Jangan lupa untuk teman-teman semuanya yang ada di sini juga ada yang di rumah. Niatnya ditetapkan gitu ya supaya apa yang disampaikan oleh Sean tadi bermanfaat untuk kita semuanya. Ya, Sean jauh-jauh dari Amerika lah ya. Berapa jam Amerika ke sini? How many hours? 29. Ya. Setelah ini akan kembali lagi ke Amerika. Semoga I hope your perjalanan Sean and istri dan istri berjalan dengan lancar. Begitu ya. Terima kasih. Ya. Terima kasih. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Andi. Dibuka oleh profesor beda sini. Yes, meskipun mendadak ya, but it's still very interesting today because we explore the intersection between educational technology and also special education, inclusivity in this era. Inclusivity is also one of our university niche. It's our strength in this university. And our speaker today have two masters in educational media and technology and special education. So if you too, my students, if you too wants to take the second study to complement your study in educational technology, that would be great. How many are there? Yeah. Please look at the Zoom. Maybe others teachers and students. Oh, 71 participants at the Zoom. Yeah. But the most energetic ones are here.
Yes, the best.
Yes. Our head of study program, Dewi, and then the quality assurance unit,
Yes.
Bu Citra, and Lucia, and students. Yes, from North Carolina Central University. So you have led on many initiatives with technological learning, but for
Blind and visually impaired. If you give me a cordless microphone, I will walk everywhere. It'll be very confusing. I will walk in the back. The cameraman will be very tired. Thank you very much for inviting me here. As they shared, my degrees are in special education, education technology, but also education psychology is my doctorate. And so my passion is for tying these three things together. So briefly, I want to share my approach to the idea of inclusivity. At my university, we specialize in visual impairments. And we believe that when you adapt and make accessible for the blind, you have solved the hardest problem. Because the blind student cannot see what's on the page. They cannot access what is being presented. And if you solve that problem, then so many other problems have been solved. And some of the philosophy and the approach. Oh, the Zoom can't hear me. Okay. I can always be louder, but I'm just, I don't want to use my outside voice. So to repeat, we believe that when you solve for the blind or the visually impaired, you solve for so many others. So I'm going to share briefly some guidelines and strategies for solving for the blind, and know that when you solve that problem, the student who is print disabled has been helped. The student who needs to adjust the content has been helped. So many other problems get solved. I don't know when you want to switch off. Good? Okay. So if huh? Well, thank you. Please feel free, if something needs translation, say so. I want to be clear and make everything understandable. So we use an approach for accessibility called barrier evaluation. So you think driving down a road, you have a barrier blocking your way. So you have to find a way around the barrier. For disabilities, it is the same. When you cannot read the screen, that is a barrier. If the content being shared is too complex, that is a barrier. If I started speaking at my normal pace, that would be a barrier.
Is this normal pace or special?
I don't.
Okay. Thank you then.
And how I speak is very different. When I speak to an American audience, my ideas are more broken. So we evaluate the barrier. We find and we name the barrier. And then we find a way of providing an alternative or a way around that barrier. The biggest barrier in education are the learning materials. Those physical materials, books, worksheets, exercises, math, writing math is a very big barrier. But now as we move into the digital age with education technology, our digital materials can be a large barrier. File format, PDF, Word, how the PDF is formatted, images, these can all be barriers, not only to blind students, but to many students. And so part of our job in education media, I will say our, I'm one of you today. I take one hat off put other hat on. Our job is to adapt the materials, to make them accessible, and to teach other teachers and professors the proper way of making them. And that is a lot of work. But when you solve the problem right the first time, you have solved it for all the times. When you make it right the one time, every time all the students use those materials, it's perfect. We hope. The second barrier that we have is, well, presentation materials. I was sharing from earlier slides, and so you could not see it. And I am on slide 8, if anyone wants to. Right now, as I am presenting, you all are seeing everything in the room. I can respond to you and back. The people on Zoom, I cannot see their attention. I cannot respond to their eye contact. They're nodding, they're acknowledging. The same is true if someone has an impairment related to social interaction. Say, do you know Asperger disease? Asperger disease, they cannot recognize emotion, no affect. Yes. And so you make expression, but they don't understand. So they cannot communicate in that way. That becomes a barrier. Maybe online is better because live, they don't understand or cannot understand what is happening. So virtual presentations offer benefits. They can also have new barriers. And then our number 8. The biggest job we have in education media. This impact to academics. Maybe I'm wrong. 9. Every time we create new tools in education, we create new problems. New tools are wonderful. But when we get to those new tools, like a learning management system, I think you use Moodle. At my old university, we taught with Blackboard. We just switched to Canvas. And so my whole campus had to remake all of our materials in Canvas in 1 year. And very little time, and old materials did not import, and it created a lot of additional problems. The benefit of a learning management system is organization. We can adjust, we can create templates, we can create different fonts and styles to use, but the teacher can change all that. I don't know if you have ever given a template to a professor and then they change everything. Always. We have to teach our lecturers, our professors, for the student, even those with cognitive impairments, even those without. Every time you change your shell, how it is organized, you give your student a new job, new complexity on learning where the assignments are, how the materials are organized. And in addition to what you teach, what is on the syllabus, you are giving the student a new learning that is learning how to access the environment. If you have, I don't know, how many classes in a per term? 10 for students? So you have 10 different environments to learn if each professor is different. That is 10 new jobs. If we use a similar template, always organized in the same way, and we can convince everyone to adopt them, at least in departments, at least there, then we can fix the problem ahead of time. We can make it more inclusive by making it more familiar. Part of the challenge of disabilities is people, I don't want to say fear, but people don't understand the differences. And so they get scared. And then the student will get scared to ask for help. When it is all familiar, it is all the same, then we take that away. And we make it more familiar. The professor is more familiar with disabilities. The student is more familiar with the online environment and how things are presented. So, yeah. Any questions about this?
That's also new to me because I think
Recording in progress.
By default, it will. I am also an Apple Distinguished Educator. I'm recognized for my creativity in presenting materials. And you are probably looking at my slides and saying, that's not very impressive. Because I teach the blind and visually impaired, my slides are always dark background, white print, no pictures. Can I create very engaging, beautiful slides? Oh yes, with animations, and I know how to do all of that. But I give up my creativity to always default to more accessible. It's hard.
ya kebayang nggak? Jadi karena mahasiswa belajar dalam satu semester bisa belajar 10 kelas yang berbeda ya. Kalau dosennya beda kan you have no I think in English. Kalian akan punya beda lingkungan untuk tiap dosen. Oh, kalau Bu Irena sukanya kayak gini, kelasnya kayak gini. Seperti harapan saya kalau di kelas kalian gitu kan. Nanti kalau ganti dosen nggak usah ketawa lu. Nanti kalau ganti dosen ganti lagi kan gitu. Nah, ternyata model seperti ini akan mengurangi aksesibilitas terhadap konten yang sudah dibuat oleh maksudnya aksesibilitas untuk belajar gitu. Jadi coba bayangin kalau semua dibuat sama. Jadi hanya kontennya yang berbeda. Tapi environment-nya sama. Jadi kalian sudah familiar dengan nanti pasti ada kuis di sini, pasti ada ini. Kalian sudah bisa merasakan pace-nya itu sama untuk setiap subjek yang berbeda. Tapi jadinya dosennya apalagi seperti saya I always different. I have my own creativity. Tapi ini jadi nggak muncul di situ. Jadi mungkin prinsip-prinsip yang kita pelajari kan prinsip saya yang every teacher could be semua dosen boleh berbeda dengan keinginannya sendiri dan kalian yang harus mengenali itu. Itu adalah satu beban berat yang diberikan dosen ke mahasiswa kalau seperti itu. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that to you. Yeah, that's new to us. To me.
No, well, and when I studied my educational psychology, I studied cognitive load theory, right? And so cognitive load theory in instructional design tells us that when we create more within the environment, the person has to ignore some of it to get at what is important. And so cognitive load theory tells us make it simpler. Only provide what supports the teaching. And at some point, when you teach and you give multiple formats, or say words with a picture, with an animation, and a lecture, at some point, the student does not access all of it. So there's a balance. You provide flexibility, you provide more ways for the student to access it, but don't give all of the ways all at once, because that's a fire hose. Give one way, and then let the student choose from the different methods. So if we go to the next slide, it's perfect. It's good. I don't want to be too proud. I don't know. Maybe? So I offer a philosophy, an approach, that you always provide all materials in digital format. You know the term born digital? We have to adopt born digital. We have to talk about born digital. I have professors I work with that still photocopy photocopies of photocopies from 1980. And in schools, teachers will copy and copy and copy. We need to move those materials digital. When they are digital, we can adjust them easily. The student can get those materials and change the size, can blow it up, can use assistive technology. We can modify it. We can save the file in multiple formats. When I lecture at my university, I give these slides for my students in Google Slides. Then I take the outline, I download the file in PowerPoint. I go to outline form, I select all, copy it, and I put the entire outline in a Word document. And then I reformat it with headings, adding headings in, and adding everything in, so that my students, when I lecture, can open the Word document and take notes on the Word document as I'm lecturing with the same materials. That same Word document, for my blind students, they can produce it in Braille. And they can follow along in Braille while I lecture. They can go back and review those notes in an audio and just listen to it as everything is going. So that born digital is the most important piece. And anytime we can preserve digital, preserve text in digital formats, we give flexibility. Does anyone use Adobe, like Photoshop? Learn Photoshop? Did you make word art? Have you, yes, you put the word in and then you make it a graphic, so that it's a GIF file. And so now there's no words. So a blind student with that GIF cannot read it anymore. We took away the digital text to make it a graphic. It hurts me. In my class in educational technology, that was the first thing we did. And I raised my hand in class and said, "Thank you, but that's not good." They said, "What do you mean?" "I teach blind students. This is not helpful." And we had very hard conversations for them to understand in educational technology what disability needed as well. Because educational media technology are creative people. We want to create. We want to try new things. We want to experiment. It's our nature. But whenever we try to go around barriers or make accessible, we feel constrained. We feel confined. Um, we have to remember that teaching is about the receiving, not the giving. We want to give our way in our expression, but the goal is the student receiving it. And so if our creativity makes it harder for them to receive, that was for us, not them. It's very hard. So the benefit, you may not know how all the ways people access digital media, but when it is digital, it can be magnified. Everyone knows Control Plus. If you're using any computer in a web browser, anytime, you just press Control and plus, it will make everything bigger. It is on every computer, every browser, everywhere. So if you give digital materials, all the student has to do is done. If you're using a Chromebook, what is it? It is Control Alt Z. Every Chromebook in the world, Control Alt Z, screen reader. It will start reading the screen to you. Any Chromebook, anywhere. But if we have not made it digital, born digital, it can't be read. The most powerful format for those people who are instructional designers is when you have a born digital file, you can modify it. And disability services can modify it very easily. There are special devices that just produce electronic braille. We call them a braille note taker. Can read any PDF as long as it's born digital. And so they can read line by line the braille. They're a little expensive though. I have even learned from my students, and it's a little embarrassing when it happens, but now in my email, all of my email is in 14-point font to make it a little easier for my students to read. And I argued with my student, just make it bigger yourself. I was wrong, and I can admit that. We all, at some point, are going to make it a little harder because maybe we like it our way. We will get through that, but to build that inclusivity into the future, we all have to change our mind a little at a time. You don't have to go all the way. You don't have to run. It's okay to walk, but we have to go that way, towards inclusivity. I don't know if... Yeah. Good. So on the next slide, I rushed ahead. I shared, maybe I need a Nerf gun. There. So I already spoke a little bit about this, but whenever you're providing slides, give that outline in a Word format. Or you can use a Google Doc, but you want the student to be able to download it and adapt it. You want to give them the original presentation file. I like Google Slides. No, back. It went too far. Too far. I keep seeing myself. Do I look okay? There we are. Yes. No. I will keep going, and rather than us all looking at the screen. I always give my students Google Slides because when I present, sometimes I do class participation. I ask for questions. A slide will be blank before class. But during class, I have 3 devices, 4 screens. My wife makes fun of me, but I am editing the file, presenting the file, reviewing the file, so that when I am done lecturing, when the students go back in, it is all updated. It is all the live file. And every time, every semester, when I present again, I give a new file. I copy that file, I change it again. Sometimes we get lazy as professors. And yeah, and we will use the same lecture maybe a few times, too many. But, but it is always good if we copy it, we change it, we give a new date. It is not the 1990s. We have so much file space. We can make another copy. We can change it again. We can add it again. And then when our students have access to that file, some of my students tell me 3 years later, thank you for that Google slide. I had a new student. I had a problem I didn't know. I didn't remember from class, but I saved that link. And so I went back and looked at your lecture again, and I knew where to find the right information. So whenever we can, sharing things that update and become live over time. The hardest part for making inclusion in terms of disabilities is special technology, because you will not be an expert in that technology. You cannot be expected to be an expert in that technology. Hopefully, you can understand how that technology works, maybe to adjust a little bit. But whenever we give multiple formats, we allow the person, maybe in disability services, to pick the right one so that they can load it into a device. That might be an iPad. That might be a special reading device. It could be, for some of my students, I will take the outline, I will convert it to an audio file. So they have an MP3 of the outline that they can review and listen to during the lecture. Years ago, I had a student whose visual impairment was very unique. It was nystagmus. People may not know nystagmus. It is when the eyes shake. So early in the morning, the student would be fine. They could read, they could do their work, but holding their eyes steady made them very tired. It hurt their head. By 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the student was very mean, very short, because he had an intense headache. The light hurt his eyes. He could not focus or read anymore. We just took the Word file, made it an MP3, put it on his phone. He's a good student then. He's nice again, because he can just close his eyes and listen. These ways to adapt are benefits of Born Digital. It is very short to get there when we have that content Born Digital. So I still need the next slide. Next. I need the sign language for next slide. Anyone? Next. Maybe? Back one. Went too far. There. The most dangerous content today. Well, let me correct. The second most dangerous content, because there is a new one, are images and video. Because images and video have implied meaning. We have to write alternative text. The most exciting new tool is AI, right? Everyone loves AI. Be careful. When an AI describes an image, it never knows why you chose that image. It can describe what is in the image, but it doesn't know, did you choose, for example, you give a picture of a forest. You don't know if that picture is because you were teaching art, so you need to know composition, how it's laid out, or biology, so you need to know which plants are there. Maybe ecology. Does that forest look healthy? What are the leaves like? What is the season? The AI will just say forest with trees, a stream maybe. The teacher knows the context, why you chose that content. And so it's very important that when we give image descriptions, that description matches the why you chose it. It can't be just simple description of what is there. For disability services, this is a hard conversation. That means the professor must provide the why. The best person to describe the image is the professor who's teaching, because they know why they chose it. The person in disability or adapting or instructional designer just knows there's an image. We can guess, maybe we know, but we need to know what is being taught with the image. This goes back to cognitive load. If the image is going to make the cognitive load less by providing context, the description has to be the right context. So videos and images are very challenging. Good videos, documentaries, education videos, don't require much. They are instructional. They tell you what you want to learn or know. When teachers use movies, you, again, don't know why. There's action, you can get audio description, but it may not be the right part. So be very careful with video in those descriptions. Now, I said images and video are the second hardest. Anyone want to guess what the new hardest is? New technology, last 3 or 4 years. Some schools, some education starts to use it. Video games definitely are using it. What technology are we seeing now? Virtual reality. Because in that environment, you are immersed. Now the context is that much harder. You don't know where to look. For the blind, even harder. Virtual reality is visual content. It does have audio. So, what was it? Maybe 12 years ago, I taught one of my students audible discrimination, how to listen for sounds and turn towards them and walk towards them. To teach them this, I used World of Warcraft. You know the game World of Warcraft? It's a virtual environment. You walk around, you fight monsters. But the audio in it is very good. So he could hear in the headphones where something was. He couldn't see the screen, but he could walk towards where he wanted. The problem right now in VR is who is developing VR. Does anyone know the leader in virtual reality? What nation? Any guesses? There are easy guesses. Israel's a good one. That's a good guess. No. Korea. Korea is right now has the most VR companies. I go every year to the Consumer Electronics Show. There are more companies from Korea. Do you know what Korea doesn't have? Disabilities law. They do not have an accessible disabilities law. So what will happen with virtual reality if the leading developer is a nation that does not have strict disability law? The programs, the structure will all be developed without access. So we have a problem on the horizon, and it's Korea. No. Kidding, joking. This is online. No. But whenever you have to pay attention to where this technology is being developed and what their laws and their rules are. Because if you do not have digital accessibility, if it is not written into your laws that online learning, that websites all have to be accessible, as we go online more and more for life, we create more barriers as we move on to those things. So, next. There. So, I said before, not all learning management systems are built the same. You use Moodle. I love Moodle. If I could teach in Moodle, I would. It has a very simple, consistent design. It has powerful tools. It is a wonderful learning management system to use. It is very good for providing multiple formats. The architecture is built well. The only thing you have to be careful of is when you use modules versus nested folders. Materials that nest in. You want the user, the student, to know how content is organized in the learning management system, because some things are not always visible. For students that have complexity issues, there's two problems. One, too much material overwhelms. Two, if you show too little material, they don't remember what is in each folder. So you have to balance. So the organization has to be simple, but cannot hide anything on accident. You ever talk with your partner and you say, "Where did you put that in the kitchen?" Something is put away, you don't know where. More important than that, and I said this before, is consistency. Templates that are consistent. Your first-year students see certain templates, certain organization, and that organization is the same through their last year. So then they can worry about more complex ideas, not new environments. We ask our students to learn so much. Let's make it easy for them. Next. I just need a button that shocks them. No. So when in doubt, when you have a problem with inclusivity, with inclusion, a student expresses a need, first, engage the student. It may be easier for you to solve the problem than someone in disability to fix the problem. Education technology, you have a lot of tools and tricks and skills, maybe sometimes more than in disability. Sometimes they may have special tools, so we collaborate with them. We work together. Do you have letters? In America, when we have a student with a disability, the professor or the lecturer gets a letter that explains at the beginning of the semester how the student needs materials, what disability services provide to that student. Each teacher gets the letter, and each teacher at the university is required to sign the letter saying, yes, I will provide this. Sometimes I read the letter and I say, I cannot give that, because if I give this, it will be cheating. It will not be the same as the other students. And we have that conversation. But when you read the letter and you find something you don't know how to do, you then talk to disability services and say, I need help. I can't do that. It is standard policy at most American universities that the student says what they need, disability services sends a letter to every professor. They get a signature for that that is an agreement. I will help them, have them in my class. And if a professor says, I will not, I cannot, then maybe different professor, different class. And it goes also in instructional design, you collaborate with the content expert. We can make very cool environments online, but we have to be careful because sometimes when we have too much fun, we change the content. We get too excited. Yes. Creative people are wonderful people, but we are also sometimes a little... So I have 2 slides here to just share what we do at my university, what resources we provide, and the limitations, where those resources are not perfect. So next slide, please. We're getting this down now. You see how quick that was?
Yeah.
We are good.
So
So another hour? Oh, now it's working, of course. I have another whole slideshow. I have so many slides. So the first tool we have and we use are digital textbooks. We have a company called Bookshare in America. And Bookshare is actually available internationally. And if an individual has a reading or visual or text impairment, they can get digital books in audio, in braille, in large print. This is so cool. About 10 years ago, there was an international treaty. If you need some reading for bedtime, treaties are very boring to read. But this is an exciting one. It was called the Marrakesh Treaty. And it is an international treaty that breaks copyright across countries. So this one company is allowed to provide people in Indonesia who are blind American books for free, however they want them. And they also provide books in each nation, and they help convert those books into a digital format. So that is one resource we use a lot. We use a program, we do file remediation. I don't know if that translates well. Kind of fixing files that aren't accessible. So some professors borrow slideshows or use slideshows from books or from text production, and they are not accessible. And so we have a program called CodeMatra. You don't need it unless you are new. That will go and tell us all the things that are broken in the file for accessibility that we need to go fix to meet the digital standards. The WC3, are you all familiar with WC3? It is the the international web standards for accessibility, the World Wide Web content standards. And there are several tools that will test your website or will test the accessibility of your files for that. We also, in America, we have a company that does described and captioned media for videos. So if you give a video, it will put captions in it for people who are deaf. They will also put descriptions in it for what is happening on the screen. And that company converts videos. That's what they do professionally. We are currently in the process of creating a credential, a certification in describing video. And so there will be certified professionals that say, I know how to do this best. I can convert video. That is coming right now for us. And then screen magnification and reading, our students have tools like NVDA or VoiceOver on their phone or TalkBack for Google phones. And then at my university, we're a little special, and I will be a little bold to say, because I have my technology lab. And because I teach special technology, I have a lab space where students or other faculty can come and try that technology for themselves. Where I open it up, I can set it up for them, and they can explore and experience that technology. Where my teachers around the state can try new things and come and see them. So that is a benefit for simulation and training if you have specialists in that technology, because it can be very expensive. Not can be. It is very expensive. For my students, I have maybe 12 in my technology class because they all have to learn the technology hands-on. The devices I give them each cost $7,500 US dollars. One for one device. Yeah, that's about 6 is 60. So one device, 118 million. So I cannot buy 12 for each student. I can get maybe 2. But we know from technology learning, one that you pass around is not good enough. You have to have time to use, to experience, to explore. So I can get maybe 2, maybe 3. These 3 students get it for 3 weeks. Then these 3 students get it for 3 weeks. And so on and so on. So we have those benefits, but we still are under very limited budgets. It's hard. Now, all of these things are good tools, but they also have limitations. So, yes, please. So, digital textbooks. And this is a problem as well in digital content we make. The images need descriptions, but like the book share I shared with you has no images, no graphs, no equations. We can get the books, but if it's a science book or a math book, half of the content in the learning is in the images or graphs or the equations. Imagine a chemistry book, no equations. Whew. So the technology is very good, it's not perfect yet. There are big gaps because has anyone ever written a math worksheet in Word? Anyone? Yeah? One person? Yes. I was a math teacher, so. When you insert the equation, you have to use equation editor to put the equation in. That is not coded as text. It is coded as a special image, as a special text. And so a screen reader will not read it. And when you convert it to another language, it will not read it. So there is still a limitation because certain books need to be done by hand or need to be done by experts. When you do file remediation, I say over and over earlier, born digital, born digital, born digital. You don't want to go fix a file. Fixing files takes way more time. And we have limited resources, limited experts. So sometimes making a new file is better. And so we have the idea, we have tools, but those tools are not very efficient. And people want AI to do it. I think we still have the image problem. When we look at students who are blind or visually impaired who are using screen readers like NVDA or magnification, very often they don't have enough training to really use it to the level needed for their work. So I visited some schools in the last couple days. They were using NVDA. If you are taking a science class, NVDA generally is not strong enough. It is not a powerful enough program. But that's what the students in high school will be learning. And then if in their first 2 years they go into a science area, they will have to learn a new program and have more time to learn it. So it is very important for any of our students with disabilities that we have structures to train them with their tools. In my work, everyone thinks screen magnification. Well, it makes it bigger. Here you go. It's simple, right? People often forget that whenever you blow up a screen, can you see everything anymore? So what does cognitive load theory tell us? When you blow up the screen, you can no longer see everything. Where do you have to keep that information? So we just increase the cognitive load of the activity for the student who is low vision because they blow it up. But we think, oh, it just makes it bigger. That's easy. But we forget that there need to be skills, or anytime you can't see something, you have to keep it in your head. It's a burden, right? This gets hard, right? It seems so simple. But the more we understand about the challenges, the better we can be. Now, even at my university, we have our technology lab, we have wonderful resources. We only have 3 faculty. In the United States, our program in technology, there are only 4 in the country of the United States. I started the first one, I started the 4th one. There are only 4 professors in the United States that specialize in this technology for 50 states, 4 programs. So even so, we have very limited resources for the number of people that need to learn it. We have great technology, we have great tools, just not enough people. And the same is true when you start. That's why we must build digital, born digital, inclusivity first. Because if we are always fixing it on the back end, we will need more and more and more people. Because think of social media content. Is it getting smaller? It's growing and growing. And it's growing exponentially, which means people don't grow exponentially. Maybe mosquitoes, but not people. And so at some point, the content will we won't be able to keep up with the content. So we focus on the start, make it born digital so that we aren't fighting an impossible battle as it grows. And any questions? I am happy to answer any questions.
Any question? From the Zoom also, please. Maybe someone could log in the Zoom and then share us if you have any question. But I have one personal remarks on this. I would like to thank you so much for giving me the idea, because now I'm currently editing the manuscript for our international conference proceeding of the university, and we submitted to Taylor and Francis. And then they asked us to give the description for every images, tables, or anything that is not text. And then all the writers, all the authors, things like, okay, I think you can just describe it. I think you can do everything by yourself. And okay, but after hearing you, then oh my God, that's such a big work. I got to know the context. I got to know. I got to really understand the articles of each articles. While this year we have the big conference in Indonesia, and we host the 6th international conference. So we have lots of manuscripts, and then it's such a, yeah, I thought, okay, let's just describe it. I can ask some students to do it, but now, no.
And depending on the content, I only talked about images, but when you look at data and charts and graphs, you get a data table. So my first degree is mathematics. I'm probability and statistics, and I was a geometry teacher. So I all of the hardest things. When you share data for an article, I was just presenting in India at a conference for people who are blind, and my data table had my counts, my mean, my standard deviation, my t-test, and then also had it for a comparison group. You can't describe that. It's too much. And so you have to provide that content in an accessible table so the reader can navigate it. When you present those materials, you can show it, but when I presented those materials, I wasn't presenting the whole chart. There are 2 or 3 things from my data that are really important, that are the big data. That's what I focus on, in the comparison. But the rules on accessibility say we have to describe everything in the writing. And the cognitive load tells us if we describe everything, we have now made it so complex that the person listening to it or reading it understood nothing. And that my thesis in my educational media technology was comparing different media formats for conversion, and which media formats had which benefits and detractions, limitations. Audio format, everyone wants audio format. It is so easy. Describe it, play it. We forget that audio formatting is linear. And once you say it, you lose it. And our auditory loop is only about 5 to 7 seconds. And then you have to pause it, rewind it. Has anyone ever listened to an audio book with a big idea and you pause it, you go back 30 seconds, you listen to it again, you stop it, you go back 15 seconds. Yes. And but then have you read the same thing and you read it through one time and then you just read it one more time, you're okay. This might be different for the next generation. We don't know. But for those of us who are digital immigrants, people that are, say, 45 and older, we are digital immigrants. We learn through reading and understand through reading. We don't know yet for the younger generation who have video, who have YouTube, who have audio content, if their brains will learn differently. And this is where I say something a little controversial. Our brains, my opinion, I cannot find evidence that our brains are adapted for reading. Literacy, common literacy in America is about 70 years old, where everyone can read. Brains don't evolve in 70 years. But we have thousands of years of listening to stories and learning. We may be going back there. There is something about listening that is intrinsically human, to tell stories and learn from stories. But some of these ideas are so heavy, like in a manuscript. It doesn't translate. It's so hard. There is a conference in Florida called ATIA, Assistive Technology Industry Association. I think they have the best standards for manuscript and presentation accessibility. They are a leader.
I thought it's going to be, okay, we can finish it within 1 week, but now I don't think so.
Well, and you will make mistakes, right?
Yeah.
We cannot run. Remember, we cannot run. We have to take steps. We will fail. We have to remind ourselves that every time we fail, we're learning. We have, I'm sure, some good students in the room. You like getting A's, good grades. So if you got an A the first time, it was probably too easy for you. When you have to try and try again, when you fail, now you're challenging yourself. So it's not always comfortable though.
But I do agree on storytelling because my research is all about digital storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. And for the second point that I would like to highlight is that how the rules of the letter at the first beginning of the semester for the students.
Mm-hmm.
I think then the students can request or I don't know, negotiate how they learn with the teachers because they already know how they learn. The students, your students already know what are their preferences in learning. Somehow I don't think our students have the knowledge of detecting their own ability in learning because they get used to be maybe passive learners.
Yes.
But nowadays, I think they are getting better. They are more active with all the social media and things, and all the quizzes of knowing your preferences thing.
Right.
So I think they know what they are, but still, for learning, they might not know that they need something to learn better.
Mm-hmm.
Culture maybe also cultural thing. The teachers are always right, and they are our parents. So I think, but uh, this no. After the pandemic, I got quite lots of requests on making the audio because they are working. They said the reasons not because of how they learn differently, but because of the condition. They are working, they are learning, and they are traveling a lot, so they need some audio explanation instead of reading because it's going to be so difficult to read on the train or on the bus, but not because of their learning. That's I think. So maybe there is a early detection or helping the students how to know how they learn best. Maybe.
Well, we can do an experiment. We have 70 people on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Can we poll them and see how many people are doing something else while they listen to this?
Yeah. I guess almost everybody, almost all 70, even though here, I guess they're thinking of some
People.
yeah. Ya, nggak ada yang full concentrate kan, pasti multitasking dong, yang di rumah ya, ataupun yang di sini pasti multitasking, apalagi dosennya ya.
But we know, right? We know the more we do that, it's easy, and we kind of fool ourselves sometimes. There are that it's okay. When I lecture, I have one student in my one class that can't get home in time. And she's very polite and turns her video on because all of my classes are online. And I see her driving, and it scares me.
Oh yeah, we got that a lot.
I see her look at the phone, and I say, stop looking at me. Look at the road. But we know that all of this online learning, multitasking, adjusting, that we can kind of put more in.
Yeah.
But to learn how we learn, we have to slow down.
Yeah, guys, slow down.
It's very hard because we think we can do everything. And the world tells us we can do everything. But to learn it deeply, like I learned a new technology this morning. I have new video cameras. I love my gadgets. And I was taking video of Indonesian streets for my students when I go home because I train teachers for the blind that walk with a cane. And so I wanted to cross a 4-lane road here. And so I had to take an hour out this morning from everything else I was doing to just use that device to learn it, to practice with it. When I'm on my 29-hour flight, I will be putting the video on my computer. I will be editing it. I will be checking it. I will take that time to slowly learn. Maybe it's because I'm old. You're okay to say that. I'm not getting any younger. But we do know the 3 parts of cognitive load. Yes? We know germane. We know intrinsic, extraneous, germane. We always forget germane. Germane is the most important load. Intrinsic is what the task has by itself. Extraneous is what is extra. Germane, if you have no load left for germane, you don't learn. You don't encode it into long-term memory and build schema. When we multitask, we take away germane. We fill that last piece of load up with something different, and we deny ourselves deep learning.
Yeah. Yes, of course. Please.
Uh-oh.
Ini sudah mati gaya.
She asks hard questions.
Yeah, that's her job. Please, Bu.
Thank you very much, Sean, Irene, and Department of Educational Technology, because this is a great, great idea, even though we held this seminar in the short plan, very short, only 2 days. Yes, but this is we really need this on because as special educators, yeah. So I think that we strong in the content, but somehow in the technology part we don't know about that, about how to use the technology, the newest technology, and we need to do collaborative work here as this is maybe for the initial, yeah, for the beginning, but we need to work together in the research and everything. Me and my friends Chitra, we start to do that because I know that I cannot work about this myself. We need people here who have different views of thinking, something like that. So I feel during this session, I start thinking it's look like you slapped me right in my eyes, yeah, because I think that oh my maybe I'm not inclusion enough. I'm not prepare my teaching inclusive enough or accessible enough for all of my students somehow. So it make me shame of myself because oh I should, but like we have this workload, yeah, Mbak, yeah. As I told you, maybe minimum 10 classes during a week, which is how you can manage everything. You should give us some suggestion then. So how to prepare everything? Maybe you also need to send the PowerPoint first before it start teaching, yeah, so they can read it first. Then yeah. So yeah, thank you for this inspiration. Maybe all of us should contemplate, should think again, what should we do for our student. Thank you very much.
And all of us have this challenge. It, the time, the adjustment, it is all of us. The, this is the burden of inclusion. Whenever we really want inclusion, it is fine to say it. The universal design, I'm sure you guys have heard, universal design. It's easy to say. I tell my students, there's a phrase we use in disabilities. Oh, we will say, that is not accessible. There's a trick in that phrase. And the trick is when a person or a specialist says, that is not accessible, they don't mean for everyone. They just mean for them. When a blind person tells you that's not accessible, they're not telling you it's not accessible for deaf people. Every time we say that, every time we say something is not universal designed, we mean for our people. For me, that means blind and visually impaired. When I look at something and say it's not accessible, I'm not thinking deaf, I'm not thinking deaf-blind, I'm not thinking cognitive impairments, not first, maybe a little down the road. So every time someone tells us that, we fix it a little. And so we don't have to do it all the time, everywhere. Even for my classes, when I have a student who is blind in my class, I change all of my slides and how I teach. And then if I don't have a blind student for 2 or 3 semesters, I get lazy. We all do. It's human nature. We default to our preference. That is how we work. It's just as long as we do that born digital and we keep the philosophy. We are open to inclusion. We are willing to include. We are humble to recognize when we make a mistake or when we exclude someone, and we apologize, we fix, we move on. That's the piece. And they asked the other day in my session, in my keynote, where do you start? With the faculty and lecture, with the people, or with the infrastructure? And I said it always has to start with people. Because when we believe in it, when we are committed to it, then we can fix everything else. But it takes time and energy to change people's minds and help people believe that it's important. That's the first fight. And I think that's where we are today.
Mohon izin menyampaikan terjemahannya karena di WA. Ya, ya kita masih punya banyak PR yang harus dilakukan karena baik dosen, guru maupun mahasiswa mungkin kita nggak sadar kalau kita punya kebutuhan belajar yang tersendiri. Ada yang mungkin baru tahu kalau ini bedainnya susah ya, lihat teks terus capek sama lihat teks terus pusing karena disability atau lihat teks terus capek karena males. Enggak, I'm so sorry. Tapi memang mahasiswanya juga harus sadar bagaimana kebutuhan belajarnya mereka. Jadi bisa sinkron juga sama dosennya butuhnya apa. Kami yang dosen-dosen atau kalian yang nanti akan membuat media pendidikan untuk sekolah ataupun masyarakat juga harus bisa membayangkan bahwa yang akan melihat media kalian bukan cuma orang, mungkin juga akan melibatkan orang-orang yang membutuhkan atau dengan metode belajar yang berbeda atau memiliki kebutuhan tersendiri dalam belajar. Kayak tadi, ternyata kenapa kok kalau baca itu capek banget, nanti baca sedikit sudah marah-marah, sudah habis kesabarannya. Ternyata karena untuk membaca satu bagian itu dia sudah butuh konsentrasi yang berlebih di situ. Kita tidak memperkirakan hal itu di antara kita sendiri. Nah, berarti kan mulai dari orangnya ya, mulai dari kitanya sendiri. Kita tahu kebutuhannya apa, kita tahu bisanya apa, kemudian apa yang bisa kita masukkan dalam media supaya belajarnya bisa bareng-bareng juga gitu. Nah, dosennya juga banyak salah. Mohon maaf ya, Bu Fia tadi diingatkan gitu ya. Memang kita membuat media, kita mengajar dengan mahasiswa yang ada di bayangan kita. Oh, kalian pinter, catat. Kalian sudah ahli media, catat. Kalian nggak butuh nih yang sederhana, kalian butuhnya yang advance gitu. Padahal mungkin kalian butuh rebahan gitu ya. Request gitu. Kemudian untuk yang kuliah teori belajar, we will learn, kita akan belajar tentang cognitive flow theory tadi. Ada intrinsic, extraneous, sama germane. Nanti kita tambahkan di motivasi di akhir mata kuliah. We are learning the cognitive flow theory for next month, for December. So it's
my favorite.
Yeah, me too. My supervisor in during PhD, he's the professor especially about cognitive flow theory. Yeah, and minimalism
here
too.
in
No, in the Netherlands.
Haas?
In the Netherlands, in the University
What's
of
his name?
Surabaya. The minimalism is Hans van der Meij, and then on cognitive flow theory is, now I suddenly would wait. I cannot say his name right now.
If it's
in the tip of the tongue.
It isn't Fred Pass?
No.
Okay,
no,
he's
no.
very big name.
No, he got 2 years ago. He got the award from AECT, the educational technology, for his cognitive load work on that. But on the philosophical, basic, practical theories and the practical. So
I want to make sure they know, at my university, when I did my doctorate, I had no expert in cognitive load.
Okay.
I had to read all of the articles. I had to write
my privilege.
the different professors
My benefit. Yeah.
to teach myself and then use the theory in my dissertation. So I had a 4-part cognitive load assessment in my research. So you are very lucky to have someone who
No, I'm
understand.
still learning.
But-
I'm still learning from my professor.
But still, most Americans do not learn cognitive load theory
Yeah.
in education or
Yeah.
education media. It is very rare. There are maybe 2 universities in America where there are professors working in that area. And it is very important in what you are doing. So you are very fortunate. And I was impressed that I was impressed that you had heard cognitive load, that you knew a little. I normally don't talk about it when I lecture because I have to explain it. And so that was fun.
Cognitive load theory is discussed in 2 subjects in the theories of learning and also instructional media design this semester. So they are learning.
And so I teach my students in special education cognitive load theory because anytime you have a disability, if it is a cognitive impairment, then your working memory, your attentional resources are decreased. So you have to remove extraneous, you have to make more room for germane.
Yeah.
Cognitive load theory for cognitive impairments, for intellectual developmental disabilities, are very important because if we can measure, assess, it can help us reach more of those students. And I believe it's such an important theory right now
Yes.
as we move forward.
I believe it's Professor Ton de Jong. Yeah,
I'll have
Ton
to
de
add
Jong.
to my Google Scholar.
Yeah.
Oh, Tong,
Ton de Jong.
yes.
Yeah.
I already
He
have
got
in my,
an award on that because
I have in my Google Scholar list. I follow.
Okay, that's good. Yes, when I type cognitive load theory, it shows Ton de Jong. Yeah, yeah, it's Ton de Jong, cognitive load theory. Yes, he's
So
talking
pay
about that.
attention next lessons.
Yeah, but it's not quite common actually in Indonesia because Indonesia, I think it's more ICT based to US based.
Yeah.
And in Europe, we talk about cognitive load
Yeah.
theory a lot. So when I told everyone that I'm going to do the storytelling, the first theory that I should learn and master is cognitive load theory. They said, for the
Because
storytelling and listening.
You chunk the information for delivery, for schema, for
Yeah. Oh
so
yeah, that's
good.
right. Oh, it's so nice to do that.
So in Europe, in Germany, the Netherlands,
Yeah.
in those regions, that is where the good work is happening in cognitive load theory. There are 1 or 2 researchers in the United States, but that is really in the world where that is happening. Because as a culture, the Germans, they love efficiency. They want to make it efficient.
Yeah, minimalism but
Yes.
effective.
It's just in their blood.
Yeah. Oh my God, my people. Thank you. Yes. Any other question from the students? Yeah. Okay, Mbak Nur. Mbak Nur. Mbak Nur.
Yes.
Mbak Nur.
Okay, it's very honored to meet with you, sir. So now we have talk about technology and inclusivity. So many countries, there's a remote area that do not yet use the technology to its full potential. So how can we use digital technology to create a personalized and flexible learning environment in this area? And my question is, what technology can be used to help students with disability access educational content in this area?
So
Thank you.
I firmly believe AI will be an effective tool. AI is a little scary, but I believe if we create gated AI content, so we put the information in a box, not open AI, not AI that uses everything, AI that uses just certain subject matter, maybe course content. And we can then ask that AI clarifying questions more and more. Google just released a tool maybe 3-4 weeks ago for this. I think we will need to be able to give the AI the right content, good accessible content. But through those sort of gated environments, it will be able to make the adjustments that may take too many people, right? The content curve is exponential, so we need something that can simplify at an exponential rate. And so I think AI will be a key part to that. The other goes back to the letters and how people know how they learn. And this work, I don't think this work has been done yet. This is my opinion. We need to use technology to identify how we learn.
I think they love seeing themselves on the camera.
I want to make. We need to leverage tools to identify how we learn, because if we don't know the best ways we learn, then we can't ask for it.
Yeah.
And now we do it with people, but eventually we will do it with digital assistants and tools. If professors, researchers don't write good surveys, if we don't write good questions, if we don't use established research concepts, then the AI will make it up. That requires humans, because we understand it. So I think AI is going to be a big. I'm very scared of AI.
But Bu Chitra, her research is also on a seamless learning for the personalized learning experience. Prof. Andi Kristanto also once write about the basic of adaptive learning, also for the sake of personalized learning with technology. So I think they're ready for the joint research.
If you had asked me 3 years ago, I would have said different formats, more inclusion, more flexibility. If you had asked me just 3 years ago. Today, that's all changed.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sister.
Kita sudah nggak punya waktu, Bu Fia. Oh, time's up. Oke, terima kasih semuanya. Kita harapkan bersama ya untuk persiapan yang sedemikian singkat, tapi ternyata kita mendapat sedemikian banyak masukan dan pertimbangan terhadap cara belajar kita dan juga dosennya untuk mengajar gitu. No, I will still use my creativity, right? Sorry. Jadi tetap dengan gaya saya untuk kuliah saya ya. Sorry. Mungkin in the next following years I will consider to be, to focus on the content instead of my creativity. But for right now, please accept my creativity. Yeah, and my spatial environment. I think it's more fun for you guys, right? No? They always complain because I ask them to write their works in English and then try to ask AI not to write, but to rewrite their thinking, to refine their words, not to write for them. So I think
it's very hard.
Yeah.
Need a lot of practice.
Yes, the teachers has already practiced a lot. Yeah, AI-based teacher. Oke, then terima kasih semuanya sudah hadir hari ini. Terima kasih Prof. Andi Kristanto sudah berinisiatif untuk acara yang diskusi yang hebat ini. Terima kasih Sean sudah hadir dan berbagi, for sharing your thoughts and to remind us how to move forward. Meskipun pelan ya, even though it's going to be very slow for us, because we still have to understand the big ideas and the big reason to do that, to move forwards, and to understand that each of us have special needs for learning. We just have to learn our preferences so we can talk it out and learn from each other. It's not only you guys learn from us, but the teachers also learn from you. I think it's that way. Thank you, Bu Fia, terima kasih, Bu Tari Dewi, Bu Citra, Angel, dan tamu kita yang spesial. Ih kok mau bertamu, terima kasih. Yes, dan semua mahasiswa dan juga Bapak Ibu dosen yang ada di Zoom. Thank you so much. See you next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Dami, saya nak kirim cilik. Abang tak cek ni kuduk. Aku untuk kuduk.